I play in a D&D group of mostly IRL friends. For some background, this is a homebrew game in which magic is basically witchcraft and feared by the majority of people. When we started, I wanted to do something different, so I started as a level 0 commoner, sort of an apprentice to another player. Because I didn't want to be useless, I decided to fill the niche of non-magical healer, so that I'd be useful even when I'm underleveled. So we leveled up, and I became a rogue with the healer feat. During our adventure, this other player character dies. When they create a new character, they create a rogue with the healer feat, knowing that was my exact build and character. As they're a level above me, I'm kind of obsolete in this role, a role I picked specifically to avoid that. Now I don't know what to do. Make a new character? Quit? It's less dramatic than most things on this sub, but I need to vent. Definitely less dramatic. It's not going to stay that way throughout the course of this video, but still sucks nonetheless. Sophomore year of university, I decided to join a new D&D group. After DMing for nearly 4 years, I wanted to be a player for a change. This was an 8-person group that even consisted of a few friends from my campaign. The DM was enthusiastic but inexperienced, and I only played 1 session before ducking out. The story was nonsensical. First session had us start fleeing from a castle that had been taken by the Dark Lord, and running through a forest. No character introductions, no explanation of the world, no session 0, nothing. Along the way, we meet a druid, and oh boy. The guy playing the druid wasn't exactly a great-looking guy. Definitely fit your stereotype of a basement-dwelling D&D player from the 80s. When asked to describe his character, we got this.
She's a 16-year-old, tall, dark-skinned woman, very scantily clad, not wearing a top. She's got, huge tits and is really promiscuous.
So, obviously, very creepy. On top of that, this guy had a stutter. I know speech impediments are hard to deal with. It's not his fault at all, and I'm not trying to make fun of him for having one. But look, listening to him loudly stutter his way through the phrases scantily clad and huge tits was pretty painful, to say the least. The DM sees no problem with this and continues on. Icing on the cake, this is all happening in a very public space in the student center. A security guard politely told us to take our game someplace else. I did not return. I don't even want to attempt to explain what happened here. Don't play with people like this. It will end very badly for you. Just cue the transition, get to the next story. Basically, we are playing in a dark fantasy world where the players control a squad of artificially created half-monster hybrids, specifically designed by humans for combating other monsters. So for example, the most commonly utilized hybrids are known as defanged, which are essentially artificially created vampires that exclusively crave the blood of other vampiric entities. Once, if ever, their purpose is fulfilled, they will wither away and die out as well. Pretty much every hybrid has some sort of failsafe in their design that ensures their compliance. Think DC Suicide Squad and add a grimdark aesthetic for it. My friend is still going to be referred to by his full WoW username, LoverboyXXX, which I refuse to abbreviate because forcing people to read the whole thing is hilarious to me. I'm a full functioning adult, I swear. Recently, Loverboy wanted to expand and diversify his player roster since most of his current players, with the exception of one, are playing defanged characters. That's not necessarily a bad thing, since they all play well, but it's a shame considering the amount of effort he puts into the world. Personally, I think that he's just feeling guilty that he made me come up with all these races and factions that no one ended up playing, but that's just a hunch. So he decided to put up an ad on Discord stating that he was looking for players. For some more context, it is a large server that hosts a variety of TTRPG games with their own dedicated channels. His only requirements were for any potential player to familiarize themselves with the basics of our world's lore and to choose a species that isn't one of the defanged. Straightforward enough, right? At least most of the other candidates thought so. That is with the exception of one, who we will call Succula. Succula was one of the last people to respond to the ad, by which point Loverboy had already filled the desired party slot in the group. However, Succula was particularly enthusiastic, emphasizing that they were a big fan of classic horror and they have been looking for a setting like this for a while. Being the stern and yet merciful DM that he is, Loverboy decided to let them know that he could free up an extra slot and ask them to submit their character's backstory for a review so he could figure out how to integrate them into the current plot. Also, yes, he once again made it abundantly clear that he was no longer accepting vampiric characters. Other than that, all other playable, emphasis on playable, species and classes were fine. 2 days go by since their last interaction and no word from Succula. Loverboy figured that they were either going to be busy or really committed to writing out a detailed backstory. The group were taking a break that weekend, so we had no reason to rush it. On the following Monday, just before heading to bed, he was messaged by Succula, who provided a Google Doc link for their newly created character. Upon opening said link, our unfortunate protagonist was greeted by walls upon walls of solid text. The glow of the screen illuminated his weary and unreasonably handsome face. His eyes stung from the bright red letters inscribed upon a black background using a subtly edgy font. Every fiber of his being was telling him to stop, to look away before it was too late, and yet his morbid curiosity got the better of him, and so, against his better judgment, he read on. Now, I don't think that it would be right for me to copy and paste the entirety of this person's sheet, so let me just recount what I think are the most noteworthy parts of his backstory. For one, I'm not sure whether they read any of the lore. We have a basic list of bullet points that is essentially like 1,000 characters long. That's only half of Discord's character limit per post. Succula outright stated that they were a fully fledged vampire, not even the world's version of it, just a classical sleeps in coffin and hangs in the rafters kind of vampire, red eyes and long cape included. I'm not throwing shade at the stereotypical archetype, it's just not what we were going for. Second, instead of choosing a class, they went ahead and made one up on their own. Well, okay, they technically chose a rogue as their profession, but they also added that they were capable of enhancing their attacks with vampiric magic. To answer your question, no, we didn't have anything called vampiric magic in our setting. Hell, even the quintessential D&D style blood magic wasn't fully introduced yet. They were able to turn into a bat and a wolf at will because, of course they were, and my personal favorite, they were able to make other characters into their personal thralls? Overpowered? Unreasonable? Yeah, but not entirely unsalvageable. After all, Loverboy usually tweaks his class system to better accommodate players, and while the fact that this person clearly hadn't bothered to read any of the rules was very annoying, perhaps a compromise could yet be reached. Perhaps Succula could have played some sort of deluded, theatrical antagonist, thinking himself an incarnation of Dracula himself, the legend of whom does canonically exist in our world. All of those inclinations immediately were dashed as soon as Loverboy got to the backstory. See, Succula's character wasn't born, conventionally speaking. Oh no, that would be too predictable, too tame. Instead, they were actually among the first vampires to ever exist, formed from the sizzling blood pools of hell itself. You can probably already guess who their father is proposed to be. You also read the title. When Loverboy told me about this, my first thought was that this person had to be taking the piss. But then I read it and, well, while I cannot be 100% certain if they weren't just trolling, it was written in such a genuine way that I can't help but think that they were being for real. They even disputed their decline, saying that it made sense for a character like theirs to exist. Gotta love it when people lecture you and try to educate you on your own setting. But, of course, Loverboy was the one being unreasonable for not letting them play their bootleg Castlevania Son of Satan reject. Besides, they were actually doing us a favor by contributing to the established and, in their opinion, mundane lore. Internal logic be damned, it's all about that power fantasy, baby. Needless to say, they left as soon as they stopped throwing their little tantrum. This isn't as much of a horror experience, more of a ridiculous experience, and I want to share it with you guys. Sure, Succula was sort of being an ass at the end, and their entitlement and expectations were less than reasonable, but they weren't some comically awful cartoon villain either. TLDR, player submits an edgy Mary Sue character for approval and is surprised when it gets rejected. Doesn't even get to session 0. It's been a while since we've seen this kind of shutdown before session 0, and I'm glad to see, as this kind of player probably would not have been welcome in the actual game, but it's good to see that the DM at least tried to bring them in, but once the backstory was seen and the temper tantrum thrown, it was a little bit too late. Look, I understand a lot of people get really into writing their D&D characters. I've seen it before, and I'm so happy when people are enthusiastic, but make sure that your enthusiasm doesn't turn your character into a spotlight-hogging main character. You are one character, a part of a group of characters. We've talked about this many times, but while your character should be unique, they should have personality, charm, charisma, all of that good stuff, make sure that they don't overshadow anyone else. Because remember, you're part of a team here, a group effort. Remember that always. Unlike this guy who just wanted to be some Mary Sue, Mega Titan, Son of Satan kind of thing, which is, you know, not fun for anyone except for him. Alright, this story is going to sound strange, to say the least. However, hear me out. First, I need to tell you guys that English is my native language, and if you spot any mistakes, that's the main reason for them. Regardless, on to the story. I've been a DM for a long time and recently had an idea for a character concept that's really interesting to play and I've wanted to do for a while. Thus, I looked for an online game to join, as my D&D friends aren't really interested in DMing. I'm the forever DM guy. So I turned to the internet. I found an interesting advertisement for a game and applied, eventually being chosen to play. Now, I want to play a bard, as that's my favorite class. I don't get many chances to play, so when I do something that I enjoy. However, the seductive bard trope, well, it makes my skin crawl. I mean, it's fine if you want to play that way, it's just not the way I want to play. My character was supposed to be a charismatic bard who would deal with the situations through trickery and manipulation. There are a ton of ways someone can go about problems in D&D, and I really like that idea. Session 0 went alright, people spoke, and the DM said a few ground rules. They were fine, and I didn't really see any problem with any of them. So the first session comes about, and our group is already adventuring together for a few weeks by the time the game starts. The group is composed of a fighter, a rogue, a sorcerer, a druid, and me, the bard. We started the session, and we were told we need to acquire an item that was in the possession of a noble in the town. Sure, there is absolutely no problem with that. We decided to gather information, and we learned that the guards usually go to a tavern to unwind after a day of work. We went toward that tavern, and as we did, find a lone guard drinking. Furthermore, we sat at another table and started to plan our approach. I proposed that my character could approach the man and try to befriend him, make him an acquaintance of the party, and eventually, through manipulation, get some help to get to the noble's house, as we are so interested in the artwork that they have there, posing ourselves as art connoisseurs. Well, the sorcerer did not like that plan and said, and I quote, "Nah, just seduce him, and you can distract him in his room while we steal the item." Before we started playing, I made sure to explain to them that that was not the kind of character that I wanted to play. It was not something I wanted or something I was comfortable doing. I told her that I wouldn't do that. First, it didn't fit with my character. Second, it just made me feel lots of not great. She did not take that well. She started to cuss under her breath, which we could hear through the mic, that I was the most useless bard there ever was. I was supposed to do the one thing that bards do, and I couldn't even do that right. Well, the DM ended the session there, which was a relief, to be honest, and now our next session was supposed to be tomorrow. He sent me a private message, apologizing, but he said it was best if I didn't continue in the campaign. Apparently, the sorcerer has been texting him non-stop, their IRL friends, and the other party members about me, and he thought it was going to be a problem down the road. So instead of trying his luck, it was best to just let me go. Honestly, I felt relieved more than anything. This was supposed to be a happy, fun time for me, and the first session was extremely uncomfortable. It really sucks, but I don't really think I'll be able to find a game to play my bard in. Regardless, I wish you all the best of days. Cheers, folks. May your luck be better than mine. TLDR, Sorcerer gets pissed at my bard for not seducing a guard she wanted, and got me kicked from the party for being useless. I've spoken in the past about how difficult it is to handle problem players, or players that do things that are slightly unfavorable in your game. Look, Sorcerer here is a toxic player, or at least my definition of a toxic player. She is controlling what another person does in a D&D game. She's trying to get him or her to do something that they are not comfortable with, and that is not okay. Look, D&D is supposed to be fun and supposed to be safe. You shouldn't be forcing people to do things that they don't want to do in-game. It's lame, guys. Don't do that. And the DM kicking out the bard for something that the sorcerer is instigating, not cool at all. You've got it completely reversed. I've spoken in the past that I think it's perfectly okay to separate off from a game if you don't think it's working out. I still stand by that, but kicking someone out because they're the victim of someone else's toxic play? Well, it's not great, to say the least. Where do I begin? I've written about this guy before. It's a dude named Carter. He's an old friend of my partner / co-DM. He's a fun role player to have at the table. He cannot accept that this is not his story, though. He cannot accept that he is not the DM. He keeps trying to call the shots with everything because the other players were brought in by him and we play at his house. He's very stubborn, and that's all I'll say. Anyway, here is the main issue. We were a group of 5 people until recently. We lost our paladin, personal reasons, and we are down to 4. Fighter, druid, ranger, and cleric. We were supposed to have a session yesterday, but were informed that cleric couldn't make it. Carter, the aforementioned fighter, said he didn't want to play with 3 because they wouldn't get much done. We said, okay, partly because we could have used a bit more prep for this session anyway, and wouldn't mind an extra week. Carter then informs us that Cleric, who isn't in the group chat because he doesn't use social media, is unhappy with his character class and will probably quit, so they'd be stuck at 3. He then decides that 3 players is too little for an adventuring party properly, that it should be at least 5. Therefore, how about we shelve our 2-year campaign and play in his instead? My partner and I are like, no? For a variety of reasons. Like, 1, what the hell, dude? Loads of campaigns are fine with 3 players. And 2, Cleric is quitting? He's unhappy? I mean, we'd better go get to the bottom of that. And 3, why do we have to pull the plug on our campaign in order to play in your campaign? Carter insists that not a lot of people can micromanage 2 campaigns. That's tough for even us to do. Which, as I'm typing, I realize is another Freudian slip. He admits to micromanaging our campaign as well as managing his own. He also says, there's certainly no way to run 2 campaigns bi-weekly, which, I mean, I know loads of people who do, but go off. You're a player in our game. You just have to show up. It's not like you're prepping 2 entirely different groups. Besides, we currently only meet like once a month. Carter also insists that even if Cleric stays, 4 people isn't a full party. During this, I messaged my friend to see if she and her partner would like to play with us. They'd be down. Problem solved. I informed the group about them with the one flaw that they would be over Discord instead of in real life, since they're like an hour away. Carter shuts this down immediately. Online players are no fun since connections can be choppy, and they might have to explain things twice? Okay, fine, you want a full party. We'll make you guys a little NPC companion. You can fill in the missing role and be your skill monkey. Radio silence from the group. Carter doesn't even acknowledge this suggestion. He then says he's going out, and we can sort this later. There is also the issue of the cleric to deal with. Carter is the one who brought cleric into the group, specifically to be our healer. We did not insist on this. Carter did. Now, shocker of all shockers, the person who hasn't played before is having trouble coming in with a level 8 cleric. Carter seems to be blaming us for this, saying that mostly stems from coming in with a much higher level, more complicated character. he didn't have time to grow into it, nor love it. Carter brought him in when we were level 7 and wanted him to be a cleric. We didn't care about any of that. Hearing this, we messaged the group that if Cleric is unhappy, he can totally change his class to whatever he wants, or introduce a new character. The character can even come at a lower level if they're worried about him being overwhelmed, like a level 5 rogue, so there's less to manage. Carter replies with, "Oh, then I guess we'll have a dead rogue." Okay, so you bitch at us because Cleric is at the same level as you, but if we start him at a lower level, that's also bad? How do you expect us to solve this problem? After Carter went out for the night, leaving our NPC suggestion on red, we decided to manage Cleric ourselves, letting him know what was going on, and Cleric was incredibly confused. He said he told Carter he found playing a Cleric a bit boring, but he didn't want to, quit. He then told us that Carter told him he could play as a different class in his campaign, but Cleric didn't want to play in 2 campaigns, so Carter is purposefully trying to pull our plug to get Cleric for his own game. So now we get the fun task of calling to Carter and asking him, like, what the hell, dude? Our other players, Druid and Ranger, have both been having fun with our campaign and don't want to pull the plug, and they're also directly tied to Carter, his girlfriend, and his work friend, so they're stuck in the middle. Carter is being a snake and insisting that these problems are insurmountable, and the only solution he likes is pulling our plug and then transferring all the players, including us, the 2 co-DMs, over to him. This really sucks too, because I would love to be a player, and Carter knows that, but I don't want to play with someone who's trying to micromanage and tank my own game. Getting this off my chest, I guess. Honestly, I have no idea how to fix that. Sit everyone down and talk about it. Trying to tank someone else's 2-year campaign for the lulz just because you want to selfishly micromanage everything in the group is not okay. And it's not really a great sign for your friendship/relationship. It's just, I don't trust people who are that incredibly micromanaging. There are some people who like to maintenance things, but this is next level micromanaging. I mean, I have not seen someone who will actively try to manipulate their friends into tanking their own game so that they can micromanage them on a personal level in their own campaign. I mean, that's something I've never seen before. So sit everyone down and talk about this. More than likely, somebody is going to realize that what Carter is doing is not okay. But, you know, one can only hope. If you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories and want to let me know, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment OP Vampire to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.